we have Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, who has been the Deputy Chief of Army Staff and a former member of the National Security Advisory Board. He was responsible for perspective planning, force modernization, capability development, and the creation of the Army Design Bureau in 2016. Post-retirement, he was the founding Director General of the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, known as SIDM. In-depth strategic insight is based on his experience of 4+ decades of serving India, which also includes 6 months on the Siachen Glacier in the early days of the Glacier War in 1986. He is the only Indian Army officer who is a graduate of both Staff College Camberley of UK and Army War College of United States of America. Also, General Sahaji is the recipient of Param Visisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal, Visisht Seva Medal, Bar twice, Commander, Chief of Army Staff Commendation twice, and GOC in C Western Command Commendation card. General Sahaji has also done his PhD on irregular warfare, MPhil double masters from Madras University and Pennsylvania University, and diploma in management, and he is a distinguished fellow of the Center for Joint Warfare Studies. His articles, papers, and opinion pieces are widely published in Indian and foreign journals. With this, I request General Sahaji to give us his insight into and something motivating to our JanyuTech team.
Frankly, it has been 4 decades of exactly life on the edge. How did it all start? As a very young fellow, my father was also in the army, and every 2 years we would be transferring from one place to the other. And then when I was around, I think 7 or 8 years old, he met one of his old colleagues who by then was the principal of Sainik School, Purulia in West Bengal. So this gentleman, Colonel Mazumdar, the principal of the Sainik School, he told my father that, look, if you want to give him stable education, and if you want to help him for his future, you have to do a little sacrifice from the present. You send him to my school because we are not very old. They had just started that time, but he saw promise in what he was doing as the principal. That is at a time when the concept of Sainik schools started in India today, and you may have heard even in the budget this year they spoke about Sainik schools in many states. You heard the Prime Minister talking about Sainik schools in Uttarakhand the other day. So today, so many decades, it seems to have captured the fancy or captured the imagination of the people. So that's how it is. And now we are talking about girls joining Sainik schools in India and whatever. Anyway, so that's how I joined Sainik School, and there are actually, if you ask me, I can start with instances of life on the edge from the school itself, but I don't have so much time. In 1 hour, out of the 1 hour assigned to me, I have decided that I will speak for about 40 minutes and then put it out for any discussions, points, observations, questions, etc. So I will not start so early. Anyway, so after that, after 3 years in NDA, 1 year in IMA, I joined infantry because I was very sure that if I have joined this profession, I will be at the cutting edge. I will be at the front line. So therefore, it was infantry and nothing else but that. Having said that, let me also, very humbly point out that after finishing school, I was through for all engineering colleges, those few IITs that we had. I was even through for the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata, which, as you know, takes in only about 25 students per year, and most of them don't stay in the country. So anyway, but I was very sure that I'm joining NDA. So since I had made it to India, I joined India and came to the Assam regiment. So let me narrate rather than straight jumping into the battlefield, let me narrate an anecdote which brings out camaraderie in more of a social scene rather than jumping straight to the battlefield, which I will do in a short while. So as a second lieutenant, I joined my unit. That time the unit was in Ranchi. So it is, I got about 8-9 months in Ranchi. So we have a custom, when a young second lieutenant, nowadays they join as lieutenant. In those days, we used to join as second lieutenant, i.e. 1 star on your shoulder. So when I joined as a second lieutenant, and we have this custom that first 3 months, you stay in the barracks or in the lines along with the men, along with the Jawan, and you grow up. 1 week you're a Sepoy. After you have done that, you become a Lance Naik, then you become a Naik, Havaldar, and doing appointments, assignments which are commensurate to the rank. So that's how you are taught on ground, if you will, in practice, what is the life of a Jawan. So you go through that. Obviously, in this period, you are supposed to be in the lines you're not supposed to go anywhere, lead exactly that kind of a life. Call it something like quarantine, It was that kind of life. Anyway, so during a weekend like this, like today, on Saturday evening, we were having a good game of basketball. Games, as you know, in Peace Station for us, it's like a part of routine. Morning PT games during whatever routine it's part of. So we were having a good game of basketball, and after the game of basketball got over, my senior subaltern, the person who was senior to me, the lieutenant, senior subaltern, he suggested, look, today is a Saturday. Why don't you come along with us to the mess? Found the idea very exciting. So I tagged along with him and went to the mess. So there we were having a jolly good time in the evening, sitting in the bar. So suddenly from behind, the bar door opened, and a 2IC, then Major, God bless his soul, is no more. 2IC, he opened the bar door, peeped inside. He obviously saw me and saw 2-3 other young officers and decided to walk off from there. And I knew for a fact that, look, I have been caught now. But then he didn't say anything, so life carried on. And I was not prepared to believe that this is not that there will be no reaction or response to this. So anyway, after all that, since it got a little late and the mess was far from where I was, so then I decided to spend the night in the room of one of my friends. So as we knocked off to sleep and all that, all very well. Next day morning, exactly at daybreak, which was around 4:45 in the morning, there was a big knock on the door. And so the senior subaltern of mine by the name Murlidhar Kutti, he was a seasoned chap. He knew exactly what's happening. He told me, look, get up. I think the 2IC is knocking on the door. I am opening the window behind. You jump and you run while I hold on to the door. So he opened the window and I jumped out and I started running as best as I could with my slippers. So there was this, cross-country shorter route from the mess to the unit, which was maybe around 3+ kilometers. And if you came by the road, it would be around 6-7 kilometers. So Murlidhar Kutti did that holding action and allowed me to do the maneuver to get out from there. So in many ways, it was like a military tactics, hold the adversary and let the maneuver arm disappear. So I did that. And I somehow, huffing and puffing, I managed to reach my company, Delta company of 3SM where I was. And there I saw it was exactly morning muster time. So the company's Havaldar Major, we call it, like a company sergeant major. Company Havaldar Major, he was from Mizoram, Langthanga. He was taking the company muster. He saw me in this, very vague-looking dress, in chappals running from somewhere. He looked at me. He did not quite appreciate it. He told me, "Jaldi jaake change karke aa jao." So I went inside. I changed into games or PD kit, and I came and stood in the muster. Sure enough, by that time, the 2IC who came along with the road on his Lebretta scooter, he came and he was, honking over there. For quite some time, I knew for a fact that my company Havaldar Major knew why that honking of the scooter was going on. But he was very busily trying to, you could see from his face, trying to keep the company organized, engaged with whatever he was saying. So about 120 odd people. So then after some time, the 2IC ran out of patience. Second in command, he ran out of patience, Major Gurdeep. He yelled at Langthanga. He says, Langthanga, मैं इतना देर से horn बजा रहा हूँ आपको ध्यान इधर करने के लिए. Oh, so in his typical Mizo Hindi way, oh, ऐसा है ना क्या? So, and he went, running over there. And you could hear the conversation taking place between the two of them. So, Major Gurdeep asked Langthanga, ये आपका नया second lieutenant साहब कल रात को कहाँ पर था? So, he says, अभी वो मेरे muster में है. He asked the same question second time. बोलता अभी वो morning muster में है. बोलता वो मैं समझ रहा हूँ, लेकिन कल रात को किधर था? So then Langthanga says, साहब अगर वो morning muster में मेरा parade पर है, तो इसका मतलब वो company में है. So it is not as if Major Gurdeep could not have sorted him out. For some reason, Gurdeep decided to start his scooter and go away. So then I said to myself that, look, there are so many, now when you think back, there are so many lessons to be learned from this. One first lesson to be learned from the CHM, that don't let your subordinate down. If a person has been placed in your charge, take care of the interest of the person, and you can always correct him. And which he did. I mean, later on he told me that what you did was not right. But at that point in time, he never let me down. Now, when I look at the action of Gurdeep, as I was saying, it is not as if he could not have prevailed and insisted on what he was saying. He also allowed that CHM, and for that matter to me, to understand what camaraderie is all about. So like this, if you see, and for that matter, the way Muralidhar Kuti did that, holding and maneuvering action. So in many ways, I suppose that is how these bonds are built. And very recently, in 2016, our regiment was celebrating its 75 years. That means Platinum Jubilee. So I had gone over there, and so Lalan Thala had come, obviously now very old. He had come all the way from Mizoram, from Serchip, a village in south of Aizawl. He came, and when I saw him, obviously we were quite emotional and we hugged each other. And then he just, took 2 steps back, and he's looking at me and telling me that, I saw you as a lieutenant. I wanted to see you as a lieutenant general. So therefore, I have traveled all this distance. So it was very touching. So I thought, let me just share this first story, which is not necessarily from a battlefield, but how important I think is in an organization, in an institution, which has to deliver under trying circumstances, how important it is to build trust. And that trust comes when you display camaraderie and you're ready to help one another. So let's fast forward a little from there. Very early in life, I got exposed to the battlefield circumstances. India and Pakistan, we had this glacial warfare starting in the Siachen Glacier sometime in 84. 84, it started as patrols followed by some deployments. So I got an exposure to it in 1986. By that time, actually, from both sides, the deployments had reached a certain optimum level, and big contests used to carry on day in and day out. That's how I went to Siachen, and May of 1986, my battalion was deployed in the Siachen Glacier in what is called the Central Glacier. Even now, it's called the Central Glacier, and so we got deployed, and so we reached from our permanent location in eastern Ladakh, incidentally, where the standoff is happening with the Chinese now. From that side, my unit was inducted on the western side to enter the glacier. And this was done because you have to rapidly rotate units. So nowadays, people stay on top for 3 months of the glacier. In those days, because it had just started, we were staying for full 6 months. For about 3 sets of battalions did that. We were one of that. So anyway, so just as we reached, I got in touch with the gentleman whom I am supposed to replace. So he suggested, it was another unit, 11 Battalion of the Jat Regiment, 11 Jat in short. I knew the company commander whom I was replacing, so I got in touch with him. So I asked him. He says, do one thing, come as soon as you can. Don't waste time, because they had suffered a lot of casualties through the winter. They had suffered a lot of casualties in shelling, and also come as soon as you can. So it was a tough, induction, like almost 3 days and 2 nights to reach your final post. So that is the kind of advance, and you carry whatever you are going to live with, you carry it with yourself. As we got deployed with those 20 people on first lot, and then the induction process took almost 3 weeks. So we went and got deployed. So my company was deployed on 2, parallel ridge lines. I wouldn't say parallel; they would converge somewhere on 2 ridge lines like this. So let's say this is the height, this is the ridge line, this is the forward ridge line. So now on this ridge line, it goes like this. So somewhere we are here, Pakistanis are here, and Pakistanis come from this side, we go from this side. So that is the kind of scenario which is there. My company headquarters, that time it used to be called 5705, because the height of the company headquarters was 5705 meters. And on the map, it was indicated as a trig height 5705. Now they call it Darshak. So 5705, if you multiply by 3.3, you can guess how many feet it is above the mean sea level. It's almost, close to 18 plus thousand feet from the mean sea level. And my forward posts of the company, some of them were one of them was as high as 22,000 feet. So that is the kind of disposition that we were in. So I went there for slowly once we got inducted, the full 21 days. I took charge of that area as the company commander. I became responsible for that part. And it was every day in the morning, daybreak, the shelling would start, and we would continuously shell, both sides till almost last night. And as I said, last 2 nights, the movement was by night because we were dominating the Pakistanis, their approach route. The Pakistanis were dominating our approach route. So any movement, it was quite a tough one. So when I saw this, business happening, so I just calculated that on an average, we were firing almost 100 or 120, sometimes maybe a little more, rounds of the 81 millimeter mortar. We were firing almost close to, shall we say, 60, 70 field artillery, but in my case, field artillery was less because you could not reach till the very end of the Pakis with field artillery. So we would get medium artillery to fire. So that medium artillery, I had a very sanctioned amount of 30 rounds per day. So that's because otherwise you would expend more. So when this kind of thing was going on, suddenly it occurred to me that, this business of everyday shelling and making life miserable, people losing lives, posts getting damaged, something has to be done about it. So I spoke to the gentleman who was the battery commander, the medium battery commander from artillery. He and I, we had done a course together. So I knew him well. So I requested him. I said, can I do one thing, that instead of firing 30 rounds every day, sort of consolidate it and fire on any, given occasion. He says, yeah, as long as you don't jump it from one week to the other, because every week, I think on Monday, he would send a summary of ammunition expenditure. So he says, so within the week, if you do it, it's fine. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So what I did is I stopped firing, on the following day like that. So on the 6th or 7th day, as luck would have it, from the Indian side, you see, Indian company commanders, battalion commanders, they are all on the front line. On the Paki side, their officers come forward on given days, and the rest of the time they prefer to be in their bases looking after administration and stuff like that. So as my luck would have it, on the 5th or 6th day, the company commander had come to the forward post. And how do we come to know that a company commander has come to the forward post? Suddenly the intensity of firing and shelling is more. The people are more excited to score points, I suppose. So you could make out the company commander is there. And by that time, I had already conserved, say, around 150 rounds. So the post where, by my, calculation and estimate, the company commander would have been there. So I fired off my 150 medium rounds of artillery. Imagine on a small post, if 150 rounds of artillery will come, nothing will remain on the post. And thereafter, for almost a month, the Pakis stopped shelling. So because they stopped shelling, we also didn't have to shell. So it was a pretty good arrangement. That again, at that time, it was more like driven by a desire to follow a different approach to achieve your, intention of dominating your adversary. Now, with hindsight, you think, okay, there were lessons to be, learned even from that. To me, as I looked at it, and perhaps for those who are listening to it for the first time, you may have views which I'm very open to listen to. I felt that the lesson for me was, rather than just, all the time trying to do everything, if you concentrate your effort, if you concentrate your resource, if you concentrate your energy, and then strike, I think you get better results. Otherwise, ultimately you wanted to carry out various things without having to be disrupted by this continuous fire. So for me, that was a big gain. And because of, that period which you got of 1 month, it gave you the opportunity to prepare your positions, strengthen your positions. It is not easy, at that altitude, as the stores, lugging up the stores, it's a big challenge to be able to organize it like that. So you got all the breather, to be able to organize things. So that I felt was another good lesson, which perhaps can be applied in any, sort of scenario. So now another quick anecdote from the glacier only. So as I was explaining to you, we were on 2 ridge lines, the forward ridge line and the depth ridge line. So this forward ridge line, I get a message from my junior commission officer, Jace, who's the post commander, early in the morning at about 4 o'clock or so. So the previous night, all through the night, we kept hearing a lot of, noises, people trying trying to find their post and things like that. So we knew, because we also were going through such experiences. Obviously, a Pakistani logistics party, which was trying to reach the post, their supplies and stuff like that, because of very bad weather conditions, because of blizzard, snow, and what have you, they had obviously lost their way. And when they had lost their way, they were looking out for, by shouting, for some guidance to be able to come, etc.
What role does technology play in warfare? And like, what are other factors, let's say, which might be more important than technology or equivalent, which are important to consider while planning and while execution?
So again, I will use anecdotes to answer your question. Like as a brigade commander, as I told you just a little while back, I was on the line of control. Okay. And on the line of control, what are you doing? You're doing counter infiltration. So that means Pakistani terrorists are constantly trying to come, and you are trying to, check their infiltration. I'm not trying to exaggerate. As a corps commander in 2014, if you listen into the Prime Minister's speech in the DGP's annual DGP's conference, which that year was held in Guwahati, he said that this year the army has achieved zero infiltration in. So because I was carrying my experience of a brigade commander on the line of control. And to my mind, in a scenario like that, if there is going to be one decider, if there is going to be a one decider in a deadlocked situation or in a nearly equal situation to break the tie, that decider is technology. Okay, why I say this with so much of conviction? See, that is the time when we had inducted what is called the LOROS, Long Range Reconnaissance and Observation System. This LOROS, from 20 kilometers, of course, the visibility is not 20 kilometers, that is not the LOROS's fault, but the LOROS from 20 kilometers could start picking up movement. And as the object came closer, on a television screen, you could see the complete movement. If you are able to pick up the movement like that, I mean, unless you're professionally unsound, there is no way that you will not win. So really speaking, which is the deciding factor in that situation? It is the technology. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Now, for example, these unmanned, systems that you're developing in JanyuTech, more often than not, almost all the encounters eventually lead to a scenario that I am about to explain to you. See, because of various, restrictions which are there on no collateral damage, minimum collateral damage. So you must be seeing that, like today also, if you see, there is an encounter which is happening or has just concluded in Shopia. What is the first message that came? One Jawan injured, one terrorist killed, fight is still going on. Okay. And then later on, we got the sad news that the Jawan has succumbed. Why is it so? Because we are going in, and normally we don't start engaging till we draw the fire. Even in those days in Punjab, 1990, 91, the fellow came out, we saw the pistol, then we thought of engaging. Why? Because you don't want to kill an innocent. I maintain what I said. If one innocent gets killed, if one of your own gets killed, there's no point. One terrorist, how does it matter? Aaj nahi to kal to wo to marega hi. Anything, back to the point. So therefore, you'll see all situations end up where you have got the fellow into a trap and now you want to eliminate him. Imagine what are the options in front of you. Is to go charging inside the building, okay? Meaning you're endangering your own life. Or bring down the complete building, which means you're causing collateral damage. Some innocent's, house worth, whatever it is coming down. And a house, as you would agree with me, it is not only about the cost of the house. There are so many emotions which are associated with the house. Okay. And then the third scenario is if you have some smarter technology that will help you to further, localize and engage and destroy. So now what you are doing in JanyuTech, in terms of unmanned systems, that can be a game changer in scenarios like this. So therefore, the answer to your question is yes, I think technology plays a huge, role. And we have restricted ourselves to scenarios of contact warfare, when you are face to face with the enemy. In all the other domains like your cyber, like your electronic warfare, it's all technology. Okay, the operator is secondary to technology. In contact situations, the technology is secondary to the soldier. But in non-contact situations, the soldier is secondary to they have to work as a team, but the soldier is secondary to the technology. So technology, I think it is the force multiplier in any given situation.
One is the contact engagement. The other is the civilian part. In case of a non-engagement area, for example, there are people say 1,000 soldiers living in one glacier point or something like that. The food supplies and other things matter a lot for their stability or for their connection. So whether we can we are working on quadruped and biped robotic systems, whether they can carry the essentials required for the soldiers over there. Whether you find some application area there, sir, which will give a moral boosting support from the back end.
Sure. In sometime around June, July 2016, I had taken a group of industrialists and some academicians to Kashmir when I was deputy chief by that time. I don't know, Sai, did you come with that group? So we had taken this group to Kashmir, and when we were going to a place called Tooth Mari Gully, in short TMG.
Okay.
So en route, when we stopped, there was this professor from IIT Bombay only, Mishra or something his name is. So he was the person who had come from IIT Bombay. So he asked the question, he saw some mules. He saw some mules which were there at the loading point to be taken up to the post of the Tooth Mari Gully Brigade, So that brigade is deployed over almost maybe 20-25 kilometers. So he asked a question, okay, how much do these mules carry? So we told them that they carry around, 40 kilos on them. And 40 kilos, he says, okay, for how many hours? Whatever was the distance to the post. Basis that some cases 2 hours, some cases 4 hours, some cases maybe even 6 hours. So he says, no, that's a very expensive way of doing things. So of course it's a very expensive way of doing things, but what is the alternative? So then that, of course, now today you see quite often you are seeing RFIs, request for information which is coming for the purposes of getting these, shall we say, quadcopters or stuff like that, which can carry heavy loads in high altitude, for this very purpose. So for example, in a quadcopter, even if you can't carry 20 kilos, even if it carries 10 kilos, but the challenge is to negotiate the altitude, that is the rarefication of the air, because most of our quadcopters are used to operating at maximum 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters. Here we are talking about heights which are in excess of 5,000, sometimes 6,000 meters. So that's one challenge. The second challenge is, which we are seeing, is in the endurance of the engine. Right now, because more fuel, if you have to put less payload, it can carry. So that kind of balancing is a must. So these are the challenges where it can help in logistics. And again, why only logistics? It will be multi-use. If a quadcopter can carry, say, 20 kilos, imagine what high-end cameras you can load onto it, which it can be used for surveillance when it is not carrying out logistics function. So therefore, the point which you are making, so there is a lot of opportunity and there is a lot of future in what you are developing, both in the aerial vehicles or whether you are talking about unmanned ground vehicles. In both of them, there is tremendous scope, for exploiting in the field as we are seeing. Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.